Time now to speak to Laurent Bersticker, who's been going through the papers for us. Laurent, beginning with Algeria, President Abdelaziz Bouteflika is gone, no longer president. But despite that resignation, these protests going on.
Well, for many who've been taking to the streets for the past 7 weeks demanding real change, Bouteflika's resignation is only the first step. Now, Algerian paper El Khabar is among those calling for another 7th consecutive Friday of protests later today, and the article argues that it's now more than ever the time to push on with these demands for change. Failure to keep going could mean that everything so far has been for nothing. Now, that sentiment is also echoed by El Watan, which is another Algerian paper, with this headline showing various military and political figures represented on cards, which we don't have right now. And, well, basically the idea is that Bouteflika's resignation could just mean a reshuffling of the old guard without really changing anything.
And speaking of the military, Laurent, any idea what role they'll play moving forward?
Well, according to French paper Le Point Afrique, the military is likely to keep playing a central role in Algerian politics. It's now first in line, as it says, after the president's departure. That means that it could oversee the transition because it still retains a strong political influence in Algeria, and the opposition is also quite divided and scattered. Now, it's also a point made by Le Monde, which is a French newspaper, which interviewed a political scientist who says the military still very much controls the country's political institutions, and that thinking it will stay out of politics from now on amounts to wishful thinking.
And also happening this weekend, Rwanda marks 25 years since the genocide in 1994. This being something that's being closely followed by French media.
Well, that's right. It's the anniversary of one of the biggest tragedies of the century, and the country is still trying to cope with the trauma. Now, French paper La Croix dedicates its front page to this event with the headline, "Life Without Forgetting." It explores how survivors and younger generations of Rwandans have lived their lives after the genocide and managed to reconcile with each other despite this troubled past.
Now, there's also been questions over the role of France in the 1994 genocide. Have papers been following this?
Well, France's involvement has been repeatedly questioned in this genocide, and allegations have kept surfacing over the past years, but it's never been officially established. Now, French paper Libération has new revelations for us. It interviewed a former Rwandan government spy who says French authorities knew about the genocide and the killings, but chose to turn a blind eye to the situation. Now, the French government is actually expected to unveil a commission later today to investigate these links.
Now, there's also been controversy about the upcoming ceremony on Sunday in the capital in Rwanda. Tell us about this.
Well, it's a highly symbolic ceremony to commemorate the 25 years, and some 30 African heads of state are expected to be there. But Emmanuel Macron will not. He was formally invited by Rwanda's president, but declined to attend. And according to Jeune Afrique, this could be a sign of a tense atmosphere at the ceremony. Instead, Macron will send a 29-year-old MP, quite young and inexperienced. And while the article argues this might be perceived as a sign of disrespect by Rwandan authorities.
Let's move on to the United States now, where Congress is asking U.S. President Donald Trump to end the involvement in the war in Yemen.
Well, it's a bipartisan bill, which is quite rare nowadays in Congress. And according to the New York Times, it can be read as a rebuke of Trump's continued defense of Saudi Arabia, even after the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. The resolution's calling for an end to U.S. support to Saudi Arabia's war on Yemen, which has been billed one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. But unfortunately, it seems very likely that Trump will veto that bill, as he has the power to do. It will only be the second veto of his presidency.
And finally, staying in the U.S., Lauren, you found a few articles on the growing controversy surrounding Joe Biden.
Well, yes, the growing controversy, as you may have heard, around Joe Biden's inappropriate behavior, being too handsy, infringing on personal space, continues. And while Biden apologized kind of earlier this week, issued a statement saying he gets it, but didn't really apologize. And now more people are coming forward with their stories. Now, the Washington Post has one of these women who says there's a picture of her and Joe Biden that went viral where he kisses her on the forehead, and that made her very uncomfortable at the moment, but she couldn't say anything. And now she's calling on Biden to take ownership for his actions and apologize. Now, there have also been articles defending Biden. The Atlantic, for instance, published an article by a person who knows him, who's met him several times, and she argues that these public displays of affection are a sign that basically he cares too much, what they call his deviant decency. It's all well summed up in this New York Times article, calling it a sort of love fest around Joe Biden. Basically, everyone loves him, but very few people actually want him to run for president.
All right, thank you very much, Lauren. Lauren Bersicker with a roundup of what's making headlines.